Garfield is getting a sequel. Yes, that Garfield, the lasagna-loving, Monday-hating orange cat who's been a part of pop culture longer than most YouTube viewers have been alive. And once again, he's coming back with the voice of Chris Pratt, a move that still has fans split right down the middle. After the latest Garfield movie clawed its way to over $250 million at the global box office, it looks like Sony Pictures is doubling down. But the big question is, why now, and what can they do differently this time around? Let's be honest, the very idea of a Garfield movie in 2024 already feels a little bizarre. Garfield hasn't exactly been trending on TikTok. He's not part of the Marvel universe or a surprise indie icon. In fact, the character has been kind of asleep, just like he usually is in his comic strip panels. And yet here we are, talking about a sequel to a movie that somehow managed to be both nostalgic and controversial, mostly because of who was voicing him. When it was first announced that Chris Pratt would voice Garfield, the internet erupted. Not in applause, but in confusion. This was right after Pratt had been cast as Mario in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and many fans felt like he was suddenly becoming Hollywood's go-to voice for animated icons. And that rubbed some people the wrong way. Chris Pratt isn't exactly known for having a wildly diverse vocal range. He's charming, sure. Charismatic, definitely. But can he really embody a lazy, cynical cat that's been around since 1978? That's what many fans were questioning, especially since the original Garfield, voiced by Bill Murray in the early 2000s live-action CGI mashups, had such a distinct, sarcastic tone that defined the character for a whole generation. But despite all the internet backlash and eyebrow raises, the Garfield movie performed surprisingly well. It may not have reached Minions-level numbers, but it pulled in over $250 million globally, which is no small feat for a franchise that's been dormant for years. That number includes $94.5 million domestically and over $150 million overseas, proving that Garfield still has some global appeal, especially in markets like China, where the film did solid business. Sony Pictures Animation and Alcon Entertainment clearly see this as more than just a fluke. They're now working on a full-fledged sequel. And yes, Chris Pratt will return as the voice of the lazy orange feline. But here's where things get interesting. The team behind the scenes isn't changing either. Director Mark Dindal, who previously helmed The Emperor's New Groove, is returning. So are producers John Cohen, Stephen P. Wegner, and Andrew Kosove, the latter two from Alcon Entertainment. Even the writing duo behind the first movie, Paul A. Kaplan and Mark Torgove, will be back, along with David Reynolds, who worked with Dindal on Chicken Little and Finding Nemo. So basically, the sequel is bringing the whole lasagna-loving gang back together. Whether that's a good thing or not is still up for debate. And here's the real kicker. Fans don't know what they want from Garfield anymore. Is he supposed to be sarcastic and dry like in the comic strips? Wacky and slapstick like in the 2000s movies? Or a modern, meme-friendly mascot that appeals to Gen Z humor? That's the tightrope the creators are walking, and it's not easy. The original Garfield comic strip by Jim Davis was iconic because it was simple, deadpan, and oddly relatable. Garfield didn't want much, just food, sleep, and to be left alone. He didn't chase adventure. He didn't fight aliens. He didn't need a backstory. He was a mood, pure and simple. But when you bring Garfield into a feature-length animated film, you can't just have him lie on a couch for 90 minutes. You need action, conflict, plot. That's where things start getting messy. In the recent movie, the writers gave Garfield an origin story, something nobody really asked for. They added a twist involving Garfield being abandoned as a kitten, which led to a reunion with his long-lost father, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. Yes, you read that right. It was a bold choice, mixing emotional flashbacks with typical cartoon hijinks. Some fans appreciated the effort to expand Garfield's universe. Others thought it was unnecessary depth for a character who was never meant to be deep. And yet, the movie worked. Sort of. Critics were mixed, but families showed up. Kids loved the animation, parents enjoyed the nostalgia, and once again, Chris Pratt proved that he's box office gold, even when he's playing a talking cat. So what can we expect from Garfield 2? As of now, details are sparse. There's no official title, no plot synopsis, no additional cast announcements. But the tone of the sequel will likely follow the first film's structure. Action comedy with a bit of emotional fluff. There's also speculation that Odie might get a bigger role, or that the movie could lean more into Garfield's rivalry with Nermal, the annoyingly cute cat Garfield can't stand. If the writers are smart, they'll double down on the humor that made the comic strip timeless. Snarky observations, absurd laziness, and a general disdain for Mondays. One thing is certain, the Garfield sequel will be under more scrutiny than the first. Now that audiences have seen Chris Pratt's version of the character, expectations are more defined. Fans will want sharper writing, better jokes, and a more Garfield-like tone. The novelty of Pratt voicing another childhood icon has worn off. Now it's about proving that this casting choice can hold up across multiple films. And let's not forget, animated sequels are hard. For every Shrek 2 or Toy Story 2 that improves on the original, there are dozens of follow-ups that fall flat. The Garfield sequel will need to avoid the common traps: recycling jokes, overloading the story, or relying too heavily on pop culture gags. The strength of Garfield has always been in his simplicity. That's the soul of the character. And if the writers lose that, the movie could easily feel hollow. Of course, there will always be haters. People who think Bill Murray should have returned. People who miss the old 2D animated Garfield from the Saturday morning cartoons. People who think turning Garfield into a 3D action hero is a betrayal. But at the end of the day, if people are talking, the character is still alive. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Garfield never truly goes away. He disappears for a while, naps for a decade or so, then returns, often rebranded, usually controversial, but always familiar. He doesn't need to be part of a cinematic universe. He doesn't need to save the world. He just needs to hate Mondays, love lasagna, and be unapologetically lazy. So, here's hoping that Garfield 2 gets it right, that it embraces what made the original comic iconic, that it trusts in the power of personality over plot, and most importantly, that it lets Garfield just be Garfield. Because honestly, in a world that's always running, jumping, and over-explaining itself, maybe we need a character who just wants to chill, nap, and eat in peace. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's weirdest choices, and let us know in the comments, should Garfield stay lazy or get a full-blown cinematic universe? This is Hollywood Updates, where we turn the headlines into real stories. See you in the next one.